You know you have to save for your retirement, but as many of us consider what to do after retirement, what do you do? Especially if you've had a high-profile life, you've been an executive, you've been influential, you've been powerful, you have people doing your bidding day in and day out, and suddenly you're expected to stop. How many of us just want to step out of the workplace, but actually we don't know what to do with the rest of our time? This is Tonight. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight I speak to Johann Redelinghuys, the Chief Executive of Portfolio&Co, and a man called Dave Sullivan, who's reinventing his life ahead of retirement. Are you still working, Dave, or have you actually
Sometimes.
retired? Sometimes, when you choose to.
That's right.
You had a career in what they called in the 70s computers.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now you've hit retirement age.
Absolutely, yeah.
And did you have a bit of a crisis?
It's not really a crisis. It's worked out well. And I think what you want to do when you leave the corporate world, if you like, depends an awful lot on what you enjoy. You know, I spend typically 6 months of the year in Europe, mostly based in the UK, and 6 months in South Africa. Some people will say, obviously, well, how do you fund it? But I think there's a question before that, and that's, does it suit your partner? Yeah. You know, because if it doesn't, then it's funding it is irrelevant.
Absolutely.
You know, it's often enough. I'm fortunate. My wife thoroughly enjoys this gypsy style going back and forth. We love our time in for instance, London, but we also love our time in South Africa, and we have a lot of friends here, and children and grandchildren in the UK, so it fits.
Absolutely, and what you've got is life experience, you've got skills, you know people, you have connections, which is the genesis, Johann Redelinghuys, of Portfolio&Co. Tell me how that started.
Well, let me say first that we must stop the nonsense of people retiring in their early 60s, putting them out to grass when they're fit and they're well and they're doing all kinds of things. We've just got to change that whole mindset. I don't believe in retirement. I really don't. I think we should change our pace and change what we do at that age, but we've got to stop this phobia of save in order to have a retirement, and nobody gets to it at the level that they're meant to. So Portfolio&Co is a training program to prepare people for a productive life after leaving corporate life.
It feels, I'm trying to think, I think of Hollywood, and I'm sure I've seen a movie like this. It's not Grumpy Old Men. There's got to be another Hollywood movie that has sort of followed this sort of theme, hasn't there?
Well, the one that we ought to have learned from is about Schmidt.
That's the Jack Nicholson movie,
the Jack
right?
Nicholson
He's
movie.
an insurance guy who's grumpy about quitting or something.
Yes, exactly. And tries to hold on. And many of the people who reach the age at which they ought to retire do want to hold on because they don't know what else to do. Yeah. And so they invent excuses for, not to leave.
How many people have you got signed up to Portfolio&Co? Have you got executives lining up and saying, I need something to do, my wife has sent me to see you, or my husband has sent me to see you?
I've been talking about this for a very long time, Bruce. I've been talking to people for maybe 10 years about how to construct a portfolio life, the benefits of a portfolio life. And the key thing is, it's not just good for the individual, it's good for the country. Because to put those skills out to grass is also bad in a skills-starved economy like this one. So what we want to do is create opportunities for people to use their skills for their own benefit, but also for the country.
Do you do it for pay, or one assumes that executives who worked all their lives get to the retirement age and now it's time to give back? Certainly that's what would be nice in an ideal world. You look at me as if I'm crazy.
But giving back certainly is one element of the whole thing. But Bruce, you'll be surprised how many people, even those that are financially careful, are anxious about their long-term health and their long-term lives.
Nothing's getting cheaper.
Nothing's getting cheaper.
And inflation isn't slowing down.
And if you need a hip replacement when you're 80 or 85 or something like that, you're going to need funds.
So this is a way of extending careers. It's a way of keeping people engaged in the economy. I mean, Dave, yours is more complicated in that you're doing it across geographies.
Absolutely.
Do you keep a portfolio in South Africa? Do you keep a portfolio in the UK? Or do you take 6 months off in the UK and come and work here?
No, you're absolutely right, Bruce. And I'd say to be able to do it, I mean, clearly you can do the kind of portfolio life that Johann's been describing, and you do it entirely in South Africa or entirely overseas. But if you want to spread your time, as certainly I do, I think you've got to start at some point creating passive streams of income. That's absolutely critical, because we can do it in South Africa. I mean, I always try to make maximum use of any retirement and use contributions you could do. And that's beneficial, because now you've got a substantial income. Okay, if you look at the average unit trusts underlying the retirement annuities the last 5 years, most of them gone up at least 50%,
Yep.
some 100. So that's quite nice when you're doing a
not,
drawdown.
not a bad time to be
Not
retiring.
a bad time to do that, yeah. So that's a major portion. So certainly I think a key thing is to have a significant portion of passive income. Now if you are going to spend time overseas, clearly you want some passive income in the currency that you're going to be spending.
Absolutely.
Now, I mean, I'm certainly not in the HSBC list, you know, by a long chalk, anything like that, but I mean, I'm happy to share a couple of things that I've done that have worked out quite well. One of them is in the mid-90s. I started to invest in property in the UK. Now, I wasn't resident there. I've spent my entire 40 years or so working life outside the UK. And I certainly was not one of the ones that could pay cash. Okay, and so I managed to get a mortgage over there. There's a lot of paperwork if you're not resident, but you can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a mortgage. Now, clearly, when you rent a property out, it clearly means for a long time the income is largely going to pay the mortgage and the maintenance.
Yep.
Okay, but ultimately your mortgage is paid.
Ultimately, you have an asset.
Ultimately, you have an asset that is generating revenue in a currency you're going to spend.
Yeah.
And I then subsequently did that with another property. And that is now a key portion of the income that
Which
enables
creates
us to go there.
creates the platform upon which you can then
Absolutely.
build
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
post-retirement life.
But,
Yeah.
but the point that I made to Dave was that he's very fortunate, and he was cautious in his startup. But there are people now approaching the deadline of retirement who don't have those funds, or who have had those funds invested with charlatans who lost them. So a lot of people don't have passive income at this stage. They have to go out and make active income, and those are the ones that I'm really interested in.
And so what sort of people have you got queuing up? What sort of skills are they offering? Are they doing consulting services, which is the most logical extension, I suppose, to a
They certainly do
career?
consulting, but that's a bit vague. We talk to many people about non-executive board appointments, going into private equity, about doing assignments, doing government assignments, or doing assignments for whoever.
Is there appetite for that sort of thing?
There's a rising appetite, and the appetite. Have you seen what the government spends on consulting services?
Absolutely. I'm thinking of going to consulting myself.
Well, there you go.
But I'm just not old enough, or experienced, or clever enough. There we go.
So
but there is this afterlife, after work life, which is incredibly lucrative potentially.
Not only is it lucrative, but we have to make plans for it, because people, if they don't have something meaningful to go to after they become depressed, they become isolated, they become lonely. And what we want to do is make use of that resource for the benefit of the country, but we also want to connect these people to each other and to opportunities.
I've only ever spoken to one chief executive, and I said to him, so you must be dreading retirement. He said, no, best thing ever, can't wait. He was one of the guys in the construction sector who did rather well just before it all came unstuck.
You do realize that people often pretend these things.
Yeah.
They will say things like, I'm busier now than I've ever been, and I look forward to my retirement. Underneath all that, people are fearful and anxious.
But there's a real stress, isn't there? I mean, when you look at it, Dave, the real stress of waking up after 40 years of 12-hour days, 18-hour days, whatever the case might be, of waking up in year 41 and going,
There's a black hole.
what do I do today?
Yeah.
Did you face that ever?
Not completely. I have a lot of interests,
Yeah.
And I've found that really you kind of portfolio, you could kind of take segments of your life and you have a lot more time for interests and frankly for friends and family.
Yeah.
And that's great, And I've had, if you look at, I do think it's important to generate some kind of passive income, and sometimes people have said to me, oh yeah, but you can't do that today because that house 20 years ago that was £100,000 is now 200,000, okay? But the interesting thing is, the only person that pays double is that unusually healthy person that pays cash.
Yeah.
Nobody else does, because when you borrowed, most of the rest of mortals, like myself, go to the bank to try and borrow. When you go there, when you did that in the mid-90s, the interest rate was 7% there. Today it's 2%. Okay, and there's even one or two banks offering 1% mortgages. So the gross amount you're going to pay for that house is only 20-30% more than it was then.
But it's constructing the portfolio.
Yeah.
Do you wish you'd stumbled upon this earlier, Johann? I mean, you say you've been talking about it for years, and all of us talk about the best holiday, the best saving, the best plan. Should more executives be getting out earlier and creating their portfolios in their 50s rather than their 60s? And actually getting a bit of a life, quite frankly.
It's a very interesting question, because we're finding more and more people coming down the age gradient in 45 or 50, cashing in their chips because they've had equity in some business or something like that, and then they think they must go and play golf and go down to the fan court for the rest of their life. But they're frustrated and they feel unused, and they're in the prime of their life. And people at 60 these days are running comrades and doing all kinds of other enterprising things. Why would their minds be out to grass?
Should we be doing it earlier?
We should be doing it. We could be doing it earlier. There's no general rule. I think there are many people these days who would choose to have a life that is not constrained by corporate rules.
So how popular is this proving to be?
Popular enough for us to build a business around it.
Okay, so you're making money out of it. How do you? What's the business model? I mean, you've been placing people in executive and non-executive jobs all your life as a headhunter, and this is just taking it to the next level.
It's a training program, just like you go to your coach at the gym, who shows you how to keep your body fit. We'll keep your mind fit, and we'll give you a psychological training program in the same way.
So you're extending your life beyond Heidrick and Struggles.
Indeed.
And how's your portfolio life?
Doing very well, thank you very much.
And what's the key aspect of it?
The training. I'm doing this. I'm not leaving Heidrick and Struggles entirely. I'm working alongside Heidrick and Struggles, but I have De Hoek, a country house in the Magaliesberg, that keeps me occupied
and worried, I'm sure.
And worried,
absolutely,
and one or two other things.
There we go. Johann Redelinghuys, very nice to see you, and thank you so much to Johann Redelinghuys, the Chief Executive of Portfolio and Company, and Dave Sullivan, ex-computer guy, who is still a computer guy when he chooses to be. The rest of the time he's in the UK. He's having a good life. It's about the portfolio life. It's about saying, I was going to think a rude word, but saying no thanks to retirement and taking control of your life beyond the age of 60 or 65. It's like, you've got another 30 years ahead of you. Don't quit now. Thanks for watching. There'll be more tonight, tomorrow. Till then, good night and goodbye.